Hi, this is Chris Bell, and this is my presentation on my research regarding contemporary figure painters. The first artist I selected was Colin Davidson from Northern Ireland. He's Hi, this is Chris Bell, and this is my presentation regarding my research about contemporary figure painters. The first artist that I selected was Colin Davidson from Northern Ireland, and he is known for these large, expressive head portraits. And what I'm drawn to is the fact that it looks like that you're having a conversation with these people, their expressions, the way he's captured them, the way he's focused on them. These heads that he's painted are fairly large, but they're intimate at the same time. And I love the way that there's this sound drawing, and there's such an accuracy and a trueness to life there. At the same time, he's being very abstract in certain areas, and he's really caking on the paint and sculpting with the paint on the canvas. So as I talk about some of these things, I've already mentioned some of the things that I really like, the heavy impasto and sculptural quality. His sitters are shown in their vulnerability. They're not highly posed, and they appear to be lost in thought. And the sitter is without status symbols, and so whether he's painting Queen Elizabeth II, which he's painted, or Ed Sheeran, or just somebody, just a friend, they're treated equally. I would like to incorporate some of that texture onto my canvases, and I would like to play around with his use of lost edges, infusing the sitter with the background and their environment. Scott Pryor, W. Pryor, there's another artist by the name of Scott Pryor, so he makes a point to use his middle initial. So this piece is a good example of his ability to organize complex scenes and many figures at one time, and I just love the sense of chaos, or the order that he's made out of the chaos. So key characteristics, he's a plein air painter. He works almost exclusively from life, and I like his loose impressionistic brushstrokes. I like that he's able to organize groups of people and bring order to the chaos. Everything, it looks very natural, and I like the way that his painting technique looks direct, very direct, wet into wet. As far as implementation, I would like to integrate figures into my paintings the way that he does, to where they look very natural. And I like the way that he's able to do it to where they look like they're mid-action. They're not rigid, and due to his loose brush strokes and whatnot. And that's what I would like to implement or integrate into my own paintings. I know I'm going to butcher her name, but Camille d'Alisson. She's a French artist born in Paris. She actually didn't train as a painter. She was trained as a sculptor first, and then she teaches herself how to paint later. What I am immediately drawn to is the fluorescent colors that she's using, and the people that she's choosing to paint. The workers, the people who do the important work behind the scenes of everyday life. So she does choose to paint what she refers to as the hidden workforce, and I like her closely cropped compositions as well. I like that she is elevating certain groups of people, and that she's willing to focus on hands and feet or tools to tell a story without feeling the need to paint the entire figure. I like the use of the underpainting in the final image, and that's something I would like to carry over into my own work, and to look out for those modern colors used in everyday life, like the high-vis colors of workers. And I also, I don't really have anybody in mind right now, but I do like the idea of painting with a purpose, to where you are trying to elevate certain groups of people through your artwork, and so I appreciate that in hers. Lola Earhart's the next artist. She's from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Eventually graduates from the University of Barcelona. Her work reminds me of Fairfield Porter in a way, that there's a synthesis between, or it's caught somewhere between drawing and painting. Both are like equally present in her work, and I like that the drawing remains visible to the end. She's known for these intimate moments in private spaces, and she focuses a lot of themes on womanhood, whether it's childbirth or motherhood. I'm attracted to the authenticity of her work, the use of this figurative, solid figurative drawing with the loose brushwork, um, and the way that stays with the painting until the end. I would like to do that for my own, and she works large. I like to work large. The way that she works large allows her to use these large, energetic brush strokes, and I would like to incorporate more of that into my own. Zoe Frank is the next artist that I chose. She has atelier training, so she's got this classical background, but then she has expanded upon that. So she does have this beautiful drawing, but then she also combines it with these flattened planes of color and abstraction, and this overlapping nature creates the impression that time is passing and that there's multiple things happening in the same canvas, which I think is fascinating. And of course, she's using everyday life as her subject matter. I would like to, or I resonate with that changing of time, and also the geometric elements and how she's maintaining realism but then incorporating that as well. As far as implementation goes, I think, having those geometric color blocks and alongside of the observational passages, I would like to play more with that bridge between realism and abstraction, and that leads into the next one, and that is to convey the passage of time possibly. As far as the experimental artist, the first one I chose was Andy Denzler, a Swiss artist. What he's known for is using a squeegee or a palette knife to take a wet naturalistic painting and then create these passages of blurring, which mimics video interference, or more of like on a VCR tape, kind of where it would as it was rewinding. And I think that's interesting that you're combining a technology effect with classical painting, and that realism and abstraction combination as well that I'm attracted to in all these artists. So I admire that contrast and how there is that smooth realism, but then also the contrast with that heavy impasto left by the scrapes. As far as implementation goes, I would like to try using squeegees, spatulas, other tools to make more different kinds of marks, and to think more intentionally about the underpainting and distortion as an effort to guide the viewer's eye. Carl Meligari is my next artist, experimental artist. He's born in Wales to Italian parents, and his pieces are very sculptural again. The paintings look wet, like they're dripping, and he's inspired by both sculptors and colorists like Giorgio Morandi, which his color palette does remind you of Morandi's work. He paints in layers. He's monochromatic as far as his color palette, and his figures are obscured or anonymous, which I resonate with. That there's these universal human emotions are suggested rather than something very, very specific. And again, the sculptural approach to the human face. I would like to play around with this a little bit, different mark making strategies, possibly playing with drips and that layered process. Also with restraining my palette a little bit. I don't use extremely bright colors anyway, but I think it's interesting. It can be really beautiful when there's that close value range, and it's keyed, to where there's that restrained color. And also masking facial features to where you can, and playing around with the idea that you can convey emotion and feeling without every single detail in the face. And my final artist is Bisa Butler, born in Orange, New Jersey. She'll actually go on to teach high school to public art, or at a public school, high school art at a public school in New Jersey for over a decade before becoming a full-time artist. And I'm just fascinated with her work and the fact that she's able to incorporate quilting to paint basically with fabric. And the colors that she uses are just gorgeous. So this expressive color rather than natural skin tones are really fascinating. And the subjects she uses are based on vintage photography of African Americans, much of it anonymous. So I think that's interesting how you can use these photographs to elevate those persons who may not otherwise have any identification attached to them. I'm inspired by her use of colors. I know I just said that'd be interesting to play with a restrained palette. But on the other hand, artists like her make me think that it's okay to use that bright color as well. I also like how she's choosing her references. Now I take my own photographs and use my own, but I have been through flea markets and antique shops and saw lots and lots of older photographs that are anonymous, and I think it's interesting how you can use those and how they can still have a story to tell. So as far as implementation goes, I would like to possibly experiment with that, and also maybe using collage elements to mimic, kind of how she has these various textures and patterns in her work. Thank you.